Good evening. And if you're just tuning in, you're listening to 105.3 and 107.7 to UFO Paranormal Radio Network, otherwise known as United Public Radio Network, or just UPRN, we like to call it, out of the beautiful city of New Orleans. And I'm the host of this show, The Angel Rock. If you've never been here before, welcome. And I see we got some returning people already. Z-Sun Dragon, or Kevin, as we call him. A little bit about myself. I'm a Canadian clairvoyant medium. I'm also a crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher, and mentor. I am a budding animal communicator, a registered nurse, and well-versed actually in the paranormal. And it wasn't by choice. And near-death experiences. I have studied them for over 40 years professionally and personally, as well as I had one as a toddler. I'm going to introduce my amazing guest in just one second. You know, I always start the show with a few housekeeping things. So if you like what you see here, please like, share, and subscribe. This network's been around for over 25 years, and there's something for everybody here. We have multiple hosts streaming 7 days a week here with different shows. And when we're not live, the archive server randomly picks some of our great content from over the last 25 years. So yeah, let your friends and family know all about it. We'd love to have you here. Also, I am the co-host of our second show I started here just a year ago on Thursday nights with my good friend and amazing medium and angel channel, David Hansel, and it's called The Thing at the Foot of the Bed. Again, Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Both of these shows are audience participative, and do not forget that this network has a TV channel. We are on Roku. So the easiest way to find our network is to go to the channel store on Roku. You're going to type in UFO space P, as in paranormal. There's a drop-down list. We're about the third or fourth one down, and you're looking for UFO space paranormal and United Public Radio. And guess what, folks? Not only do I stream The Thing at the Foot of the Bed on Thursday nights on our network channel, this month, I'm giving it a try for the Angel Rock. So we are on there this month. So you guys got to share it and let people watch it. You know, we always have great guests and great content. I won't go into the Facebook stuff, but if you're on Facebook and you come up as Facebook user, I'm going to highlight you in the left-hand corner, just so you know, and I'll tell you how to take that away so we can tell who you are and address you when you become part of the conversation. If you want to join in the conversation, we've got Michelle here, I see. She's getting ready, I bet, for work over in Australia. It's Tuesday morning over there. Where you need to go is UFO, Paranormal, and United Public Radio on Facebook and or YouTube. You can go to my YouTube channel, which is The Angel Rock with Lorilei Potvin. We are streaming, like I said, on Roku. We are also on Instagram. I'm giving that a try this month to see how that goes. It's new with StreamYard. Also, we are on Canada's Most Haunted. So check us out and become part of the conversation. All right, on to my amazing and very patient guest. Give me 1 second. Got to grab a quick drink here. So I have an amazing guest here by the name of David Gaggin. Gaggin. You told me Gaggin. You told me how to say it properly before the show. He's received a BA in mathematics and a Bachelor's of Science and Master's degrees in electrical engineering. He spent 16 years designing and managing flight control systems, avionics, and cockpits for the Boeing company. He then joined the U.S. government senior executive service, where he spent 9 years in various director positions for the U.S. Army's and NASA's electronic research laboratories. For the last 16 years of his business career, he was the CEO of Cobham, I hope I said that right, Cobham Defense Electronic Systems, or CDES Corp., a company he founded and grew into the world's leading defense microwave corporation. He was the first employee, and at his retirement, CDES had over 3,500 employees and $1 billion in annual revenue. That is really impressive. However, throughout his business career, he spent his spare time seeking answers to questions like, who am I? Where am I, and why am I here? The view of science that the universe was an accident and life had no meaning made no sense to him. We live in a highly complex world, and he felt that there was no chance that it happened coincidentally. He was raised an Episcopalian, but even as a teenager, questioned the validity of the Christian beliefs. He studied all the great religions in an attempt to learn their source. He found that their original principles were strikingly similar. They sure are, despite being created thousands of years apart and in different parts of the world. However, today their founding principles are usually overlooked, and their original tenets are difficult to discern. Philosophy seemed like a fertile source of wisdom, so he started with the ancient Greeks like Plato and Pythagoras and worked his way up to Emerson. And there's a reason why I'm reading this very long, illustrious background, because it kind of gives you a feel for the amount of knowledge I know our guest is going to have. He then studied Eastern philosophies, which offered excellent insights, but he did not provide the answers he was seeking. Curiously, it seemed the older the philosophy, the more enlightened it was. He concluded that neither religion, science, nor philosophy could provide a rational view of reality, so he started examining extrasensory perception, or I would call it ESP. After sifting through realms of information, a consistent pattern of wisdom began to emerge and separate itself from the rest of the documentation. After retiring from the business world, he wrote The Endless Journey, a metaphysical book on the nature of reality, and subsequently was a guest on over 25 radio shows. He created and for 2 years hosted the Common Sense Spirituality Show. This is a weekly show, and it averaged, I would say, over 250,000 downloads each month. The show exposed him to a group of fascinating guests who were leaders in the metaphysical world. He does have a website, which contains about 80 of his radio programs. And he also did a weekly podcast called Aspects of Spirituality. Later, he founded and still hosts the Sanibel Metaphysical Meetup Group, where he gives regular metaphysical presentations to local audiences. After a lifetime of study, not only did the multitude of disparate information began to make sense, it turned out to be a truly good news story. He always had the feeling that truth would be positive, but the answers he found far exceeded his wildest dreams. And he's here to discuss his new book, Our Eternal Existence, a Metaphysical Perspective of Reality. Welcome, David. Wow. And I thought I had a long bio. Welcome.
Hi, Lorilei. I'm amazed you went through all of that.
I don't normally, but you know what? I do my homework, as you know, being a host yourself from previous radio shows. And I thought it was important for the discussion we're going to have tonight. And before I do every show, I always tell people I don't meet my guests till just before they come on the show. Also, I leave it up to spirit collectively. Where are we going with this? And I think we're going to have a fascinating conversation with your background. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, we got to thank Gavin. Gavin Lee Davies always sends the best audience or guests to me. Sorry, my light's dying on me here. That's a sign already. He sends me the best guests, and I trust him implicitly. I have worked with Gavin for years, and he has never sent me anything but a fascinating human being that comes on my show. And I think you are going to be one too. So welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, let's see. I'm going to go through the comments quickly here. Of course you do, Kevin. That wouldn't be weird. I'm going to go through here quickly. So we've got Michelle, like I said, everybody's saying hi to each other. And then Sandra Sharp's here. Welcome. But Kevin said he heard growling. Interesting. We'll have to see what happens with that. Sometimes we do get EVPs on our shows here, so you never know. Now, Michelle made a comment here, which I think is important. Common sense, that's a rare thing. And it truly is, Michelle. I have my partner, one of his friends, he always says he's very book smart, but he hasn't got a lick of common sense. He said, Michelle said she thought your mic was a bit close. So I think it sounds fine, but let us know. I think it sounds fine, David.
Okay.
And then Kevin says, something is alive. Let's hope not. So, David, wow, what a swing from your background in science. And I really appreciate that. Never mind, my partner was in electrical engineering at one time. I have a bachelor's of science nursing degree. And then to be in the fields that we are, was there like one instance that kind of got you there, or you just kept asking yourself these questions that I read in your bio and thought, I need to take a look at this?
Yeah, there wasn't one thing. My father, he was an avid reader, and he used to read things like Velikovsky and Worlds in Collision and things like this when I was a teenager. And he'd give me the book, and he'd say, "Hey, read this," and I'd read it. And he said, "What do you think?" And I'd say, "I don't have a clue." And and after a while, I started realizing that, wait a minute, this is interesting stuff, but nobody's teaching this in school.
Agree.
So I started wondering what was going on, and then I had to go make a living. So I went to college and ended up an electrical engineer after bouncing around a bit. And but I was always fascinated by what's going on. I remember sitting in church when I was about 15, looking around and seeing the beautiful stained glass windows and the robes on the minister and such, and thinking, I don't know what the answer is, but this probably isn't it. So
Agree.
I kept looking, and I did a lot of things in the business world, and I traveled a lot, and I was in a lot of hotel rooms, and I was on a lot of airplanes and a lot of airports. So I had a lot of time on my hands to do research. So I was able to do that while I was working. And then I hit a point where I thought, well, I've done this, and I was about ready to leave. I wanted to write a book, and it took me a solid 6 months, I'd say, to get the business world out of my head before I could put pen to paper and start. So it basically, metaphysics has been my passion. I didn't know it was metaphysics when I started out having the passion. I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't know the answer I'd find. So I just kind of pursued it, and the spiritual world, if you will, kind of led me along the path.
Okay, so for somebody listening, um, oh, so wait, I'm going to see. Sorry, before I ask it, Kevin says, well, Lorilei was reading David's bio. Hey, David, Kevin says. He says hello to you. But for
Hi,
people
Kevin.
listening, because it's not just going to be people in the spirituality sector, listening or watching the replay. What is metaphysics? Because a lot of people don't know what that means.
Yeah, they don't. Meta means beyond.
Mhm.
And so metaphysics means beyond the physical world, which basically says, it includes the physical world, but it
Mhm.
includes religion, includes philosophy, it includes ESP. Basically, all information that you can think of would be tossed into the pot of metaphysics. And in my view, I see spirituality very differently than most of the people that are heavily into any religion. I look at metaphysics and spirituality as the same thing, because we're spirits. We're spirits having a physical experience. So
Mhm.
everything we do is spiritual.
Mhm.
So you could look at it from that. If you look at metaphysics and say, hey, this includes everything that happens, it not just what we see and feel from our five outer senses, but it's everything. So that's basically what metaphysics is. It's another view of reality, if you will.
I agree with you because I was forced. I always say probably went to Catholic or Catholic church from the day I was conceived, and forced to go to Catholic school, forced to go to mass, and I was forced because I really saw, and I'm not crapping on anybody's belief system out there. And I always say, if you feel you need religion, you go for it. Whatever works in your world. It's not my job to judge. But for me, I never got anything out of it, especially Catholic Church, because it's always the same thing: up, down, sit down, stand up, kneel, sit down, stand ups. And the same thing in school. I mean, there was nothing I could take from that for myself and make it into a valid part of my life. Um, so same as the paranormal, that's what I even lump all of this in with. And even the paranormal, and I love that you broke down the word metaphysics the way that you did, because that's what the paranormal is. People think it's like everything's a demon and what they see on TV. No, the paranormal, as you well know, just means anything that falls that wouldn't fall within the norm. Now, being a nurse, when I was in university, I was always taught we never use the word normal when we're charting because everybody's norm is different. But I would say I would think anyways that it would sort of fall into anything that as a group people would sort of deem the norm. And I love the metaphysics, like you said, the way you've described it. But what did you do with this once you got into this? Like, where did you go with this path? So you said you took about 6 months till you kind of fell away from the corporate world. And then what led you on your journey further?
Well, I had all these ideas in my head, and if you ever, you start out with a blank piece of paper and you say, "What do I believe?"
Oh,
That's a
wow.
hard thing to do,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to try to document for myself what I believed. How did
Mm-hmm.
it all fit together? I had so many inputs and set strong beliefs, and I thought, okay, let's see if we can put it on a piece of paper so you can understand me. I could understand it, what I believed and where it led me. So I wasn't trying to do it for anybody else. I wasn't trying to. I wasn't really trying to write a book to even publish. I didn't even know if I was going to publish it or not.
Right.
It was just a. I mean, I was fascinated with the topic, so I just said, okay, let's put it down. And then, I did publish it. And then after I published it, I was wondering, well, what am I going to do? And then, I was on a bunch of these radio shows, and then somebody said, one of the guys that ran a radio station said, well, why don't you have a radio show on my station? So I thought, all right, I'll do that. So I did that for a couple years, and that was a lot of work because I would pick the topic, and then I would have to find somebody who I felt was an expert that could talk about it, and therefore you have to find somebody. Generally, you don't know the people, so you
I do.
have to find somebody that wrote a book or something along that line to be able to find out who that person is. And then I'd read the book, and people would give me questions, and I'd never follow the questions. I would always make up my own. So what
I
I
did the
thought was
same.
interesting,
I did.
and so I did that. I did that until I did that until my wife died. She helped me a
Oh, I'm
lot,
sorry. I'm
and
so
yeah, it
sorry.
was unfortunate, and it was sudden, very sudden, and then it just became too much work. So I said, okay, I won't do that anymore. And then I met a lot of interesting people. I got a lot of different views on the world, and from the radio show and from other things. And so I thought, well, I'll let me put another book together, and this one will be fairly comprehensive. And that's what I did.
I love it. And as I'm talking to you here, it's interesting. It sounds like that's what I do with my show. And when I just sort of said it this year. I've been doing radio for a long time, never planned on doing it either. Wasn't even going to say yes. I'm glad that I did because I love it. But so somebody's listening to this, say way over in Russia right now. They speak English well. They've never heard of metaphysics. And they think, well, why would I want to buy your book, or how would this fit into my little tiny life over on the other side of the world? Why would they want to do that?
What our eternal existence does is it explains who you are and why you're here, and and it explains the life that you're living.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a complicated place, and we live in an illusion. And Plato told us that, and Einstein told us that. And to understand what that illusion is and what it means, is not that easy. And I knew it was an illusion only because of the people that the people that went before me, but I couldn't understand what it really meant. But it's here, it's real, but it's not as it appears to be. And so what I do is I explain what the world's all about, what you're doing here, why you're here, and also why you have the problems that you do. And everybody has problems, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has problems in life. That's why we're here. And what we don't realize is that we cause our own problems. We make our own problems. And a lot of people think that they're a victim. Well, they're only a victim of their poor decisions that they made along the way. And you don't realize that we're doing this to ourselves. And so in the book, I explain that. I explain how it works. and I also give some ideas on how you can change that, and how you can change really any aspect of your life, and that not only you can change it, but nobody else can change it for you. You're the only one that has the capability to change your life, and until you realize that, it'll never change. We have a tendency, we blame it on our spouse, our life, or our the government, or the nasty guy at work, or the boss, or whatever, and we don't realize that we're doing it to ourselves. And once we realize this, then we can do something about it. And if they read our eternal existence, they can start to see that the world is not as it appears to be, and that they have far more control over their world than they can possibly imagine.
Can you elaborate? Like Michelle says, are the only driver of this life, and I agree. And I do agree with you that we create our own problems. I agree that we are here for a purpose, every single one of us. And I believe there's a lineup to come here, because this is one of the most difficult places to come. This is one of the most, the reason why it's difficult, but there's so much room here to learn, for our souls to grow and evolve, for many, many things like that. But people don't realize that we don't pick our whole life, but we do pick why we come here. We have a whole team with us that can support us. I always tell people, whether you feel alone or not, you're never, ever alone. And we've been blessed with many tools, I think, even as a roadmap to help us along the way. But I think you touched on the key point here, that we have to get to that awakening to realize that no, nobody else caused this. And I think that's almost part of what my mission is here. And I don't say that egotistically, but is to, if people are open to it and it resonates, to recognize how incredibly powerful we are as human beings. The power of our mind, the power of our thoughts, the power of our words. That you said, we are the only ones that can make the change. And, most people can't wrap their minds around it, because you said something earlier that I've been saying a long time, that I hope I live to see the day where school, from the day a child is born, that we start teaching some of these concepts and things. Imagine what a different world we would live in. What do you think about that?
One, I think you're absolutely right.
Mhm.
I think the world would be so different. What we are brought up with is no ethics at all. I mean, we get a little bit from our parents and such like that. But if you follow science, and a lot of people do,
Mhm.
they believe in the Big Bang theory, and the Big Bang theory says this is all a big accident. Well, if you buy into the fact that it's an accident, you have no reason for anything, and of course it's not an accident. And then and so we need guidance, we need help. The church used to be able to do it, but at least to the best extent that they could, but they've kind of in too many places lost their way. So we really don't have an ethical standard that we teach our young people. And I think that ethics ought to be a course that starts when you're about 2, goes right through high school, just as important as math and reading and spelling. I
Mhm.
think each discipline, medicine, engineering, legal, ought to have their own set of specific ethical training. Because what happens is these people, they're good people. They get out there and they go through college and they get all this background and understanding, and then they get thrown into the real world, and all of a sudden these problems appear. And they have to make instantaneous decisions when they don't have the background to do that. And so that's a serious problem. And then once you start making some bad decisions, sometimes you get caught, and now you got to defend those bad decisions. So you make other bad decisions that are even worse, and then you can see where you could get off track pretty easily. So I agree with you 100% that we need to do some serious training for our young people, so that they can begin to understand who they are. And once you realize that if you knew the impact that you had on other people, you would bend over backwards to be nice to other people, because what goes around comes around, and you need to stop worrying so much about how they treat you and worry far more about how you treat them, and the world would be a very different place.
I agree with you, and have had this conversation many times on air and off air. And I think, that we are eternal energy, if you will, souls, beings, whatever people want to call us. We are having a human experience in this lifetime. We have a multitude of lifetimes. But the other part is to recognize, like, I agree with the ethics. And one thing I've just, not that I put it together, but I've been saying it off air, not on air, is, we can go to school for whatever we want. You being an engineer, say me being a nurse. Yeah, we're going to get the basics that we need. I did have some ethics training actually in university. I'm very grateful for it, because sometimes there's some hard decisions on paper to make. But I think you cannot go wrong if you lead with love and you lead with thinking of the higher purpose of why you're here, service to others rather than service to self, right? And I'm not being judgmental. There's some people choose that path. That path, I always think the further we get away from why we're here, the more difficult life becomes, right? It's almost like the universe puts up roadblocks, trying to gently kind of steer you. Not that they would ever force you, because I believe we do have free will here, but I think that that's an indicator, because I can't tell you how many people with working with them, whether they come for some intuitive guidance or teaching or even healing, almost 99% of people will say to me, I have no idea why I'm here. I feel like I'm at a real crossroads. I need some guidance as to know where to go or what to do. But my whole point is, where I was going with this big long sentence, is you can get the book learning, right? But then you almost have to toss that book out the window, because they never teach you what life is really like. Not that they can encompass all of life, but I'll take from my own profession. Yeah, I learned what the human body was and how it interacted and what disease processes and what have you. But they don't really teach you about what it's like. Experience is the best teacher, is where I'm going with this. And it never really matches the book, I have found. What do you think about that?
I agree. We're here to have experiences, and that's the whole purpose of it. And they're psychological experience. That's what we are. The physical facts around us are really the tools that we use to have these psychological experiences, and that's why we're here. And you can't get it from reading a book. You can get guidance. You can get, it can help you understand certainly what's going on, but you have to have the experiences. You have to go through it, and that's why we're here. And that's why our soul took the time and effort to build this vehicle that we call a body, to allow us to have these experiences, because the soul can't have them in other places and other ways as well as it can here. But yeah, this is a very difficult life. I think this is we chose this. A lot of people say, well, why was I here? Well, you're here because you chose it.
I always
And
say, wish I would have read the fine print.
well, on our bad day, we were saying, what was I
I
thinking? But that was yeah. There's no question about it. And I think that this is a shortcut, a supposed possible shortcut in our evolution. We say, okay, we didn't have to come here. We could have taken an easier path, but
Mhm.
we chose to come here because we can learn so much in such a short period of time. And therefore, the more you evolve, the better life is, the better existence, I should say, not life is, the better existence is, the more interesting things you can be involved with. So we're our purpose in existence is to evolve, and we chose to try to evolve a little quicker than in other places, and we're some days we're paying the price for it, but we're learning every time, every experience, everything that happens to us is a learning experience, as mundane as it may seem. I mean, keeping a budget, going to the store and deciding what to buy. All of these things, we just take them for granted. But every minuscule thing that we do is a learning thing that expands our consciousness and expands the point in our evolution that we're at.
No, I definitely agree with you. And, you know, with having studied near death experiences quite a bit and looking at people that have had the opportunity of what they would label a life review, and some of the biggest revelations people have shared is, you know, they thought some of the big monumental things that they had done, you know, that really did a big thing for a lot of people. And don't get me wrong, of course, you know, that was, you go through that. But what people forget is, or don't recognize or realize without taking a good look at this, is a life review is not a punishment, right? It's to, and I know you know this, but for our listeners, you know, it's to take a look at what did people experience also from your actions, and you get to actually feel that from their perspective. And a lot of people have shared that the little things, and I'm going on what you said, you have no idea how one person can affect the effect he or she has on so many people. And quite a few people have said things like holding that door open for that elderly person, you know, going through the door, and then you get to see what that effect had on their life. And they said, well, that was nothing to you, it was nothing, it was huge to this person, right? So my theory is that, and again, there's no right or wrong answers, because I believe this is one of the most difficult places to come. I call it Earth School. And we come in here, most of us, with spiritual amnesia, I call it, because we don't remember our previous lives. We don't remember why we're here. We come in these dense, heavy, fragile bodies that are absolutely miraculous. And yeah, there's a potential for so much learning. And, you know, to come here and even experience the depth and breadth of emotions that, you know, when you start looking into, if people are open to other life besides just human beings on earth here or over on the other side, I call it home, there's nothing but love over there, right? And so there's many different experiences that we can have here. Another theory I have, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is I almost have met people, I think myself included, and I'm not coming from a victim perspective, but people that have lived multiple lives, not just here on earth, but in different places. They seem to be the ones that have a lot on their plate growing up. It's almost like the soul knows that they're going to be able to handle this one way or another. And I don't mean to make that sound egotistical, but I have met very few people, so even in this field or looking at this kind of stuff, that have had this incredible, wonderful, easy life. And don't get me wrong, life is what you make it. This is why we're having this conversation, that we really do have a lot more control than what we think we do. But I don't know, it's been a theory of mine that the more lives people have, it seems like they get a little bit more on their plate that they've chosen. Nobody's chosen it for you. We've chosen it.
See, I agree with that. The older we get, spiritually older,
Mhm.
the more we're able to handle and the
Yes.
more we try to deal with. The oldest spirits, and I'll tell you, Shepherd Hoodwin is a good guy to go through, because he works with the entity Michael, and he can tell you how old you are, how old your soul is, if you will, in this particular round, and how many rounds we've had. And the more advanced you are, the more you're liable to take on some very,
Yes.
very difficult tasks. You know, some of these people that that have are born with serious physical issues, they chose that,
Mhm.
and they chose it because that's what their soul wanted to experience, and they, as part of their soul, said, okay, let's go do that one. And you're not going to get that from somebody who is just starting out in an infant early stage of this life. And so the more complicated people are, probably the older the soul is, and the more different the experiences that soul wants to have. So
I
yeah, I agree with you 100%.
I like I say, I never know where our conversations are going to go. But when I saw what you'd written in your book, I went, "Oh wow, I can't wait to have David on," because the topics that were covered and what Gavin had said. I went, "This is right up my alley," and I was smiling while you were talking with people that have chosen a more difficult life. Because I have an adult son with severe autism. And I know, obviously, that he's chosen this life. He's chosen mom and dad and, the people in his life. But I always say, sometimes autism can suck, but there's a lot of gifts in it too, right? And I think that's the whole thing about life, that even when I look at my own, and I always say, I try to be a positive person. I'm not faking it. I really do try to put positive energy out and live my life that way, but I'm not running around with rainbows in my front yard and, unicorns pooping all over the place and whatever. My point is, everybody has problems, like you said, a difficult life. But when I look back after some time has passed and I look at that difficult situation, and I think it could be really helpful for humanity. And again, I'm not trying to sound egotistical to anybody listening to this, but if we could just step back and say, what did I learn from this? And also take a look at what, like, for example, I lost my house. It wasn't that I wasn't paying my mortgage or anything, and it's a long story. That was 4 years ago. And it was a very difficult time, obviously. But my whole point is, here I am 4 years later, and I'm in a place that I love. Do I own this place? No. But then try and look on the bright side, right? Something breaks. I don't have to pay for it, right? Or my neighbors were so horrible. In the last place I lived, it didn't matter what we did. Oh my gosh, the people in this neighborhood and all over this neighborhood, just beautiful people. And I don't think it's because we changed our perspective or anything. I'm just looking back and thinking, would I have moved had this not happened? Probably not. It was almost like I had a little push from the universe, right? And I had to make a decision. And I'm in a better place than I was 4 years ago. So that's what I'm getting with this. If we could just really look at the big picture, I think, and try and ask ourselves, what have we learned from what we've gone through? Would you agree, or would you have some different advice maybe for people listening?
No, I agree. I agree 100%. We think of synchronicity, and we think that that's just dumb luck, and it's not.
Coincidence.
Yeah, coincidence. Well, it's not coincidence at all. What it is our inner self, our soul, if you will, setting up experiences and leading us towards other experiences. And so you got to kind of follow your way, but these things that we have trouble with, like your house. I live on an island, a barrier island, and I got hit with a hurricane
Oh,
a year
wow.
ago, and wiped out the bottom of my house. And I spent a year putting it back together again. The island's still not back together again, but I
Wow.
have no doubt I signed up for this. And at this stage, my house is back together again, and I'm functioning, and it has been for a while. But these things that we sign up for this stuff so that we'll have some kind of experience, and we don't know what those experiences are going to be, but we learn from these experiences, and the best way to do it is to just say, hey, this is what I got to deal with. I must have thought this was a good idea at the time, and and I just have to deal with it. And
Mhm.
there you go. And then you just move on. You forget about it. You forget about. A lot of times we have problems with somebody, say at work, say it's the boss, and it's driving us crazy. Well, it's highly likely that that boss could well be your best friend in the spiritual world.
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
and and you said, hey, I need a jerk down here to help me out, so I can have a certain experience. And they said, well, I don't really feel like being a jerk, Dave, but I'll come down and be a jerk, and because I think I can learn from being a jerk, so it'll
Yep.
it'll do me good and it will do you good, and by golly, I'm going to come down. So what you need to do do, give and forget. You just, you have these problems, you have an issue with somebody, you deal with it, and then you move on. You don't hold a grudge. You don't feel poorly about people. It's funny when you just meet somebody, and you have a good vibe about them, then they're probably a close friend of yours in the spiritual world. If you have a negative vibe, they still could be a close friend. But then you can probably figure there's a lesson, there's an experience here that I've got to deal with, and all I can do is head into it and move on. So we have these circumstances and the life that we live, and we need to take it a lot less personally than we do. We have to do it, but holding grudges and thinking bad things about people isn't doing us any good. It's a negative world that we're creating for ourselves, and we don't have to do that. We don't have to make that the world so negative. In the astral plane where we go when we're not here having a life, and where we're waiting to create another life, there's no negative energy there. So we come down here so we can experience that negative energy and all of these emotions. We're learning from these emotions, but we can let them get the best of us if we're not careful. And take it, accept it. Yeah, you're not going to love everybody, but don't hate anybody either. Just move on.
It's easier said than done for people.
Oh,
And I don't, again, this sounds so
without a doubt.
egotistical to people listening, and it's not meant to sound that way. It's the fact that once you start to dig into these concepts and perspectives, or you buy David's book, his books for a starting place, you start to look and start to look for answers. For example, I found out something recently, I'm going to be 59 in this coming August. So when I was 4 years old, something horrific that should never happen to a child happened to me. And when I did, I always think there's always healing to be done. I was working with a very powerful shamanic practitioner. I'm going to give her a shout out. She usually pops in here, but her name is Julie Jean Bassett. And it was so devastating at the time to discover this. I'd already known anyways. It was just sort of confirmation that I couldn't finish the session we were doing. I did complete it the next day. But what had happened was I was sharing it with my partner, and he kept interjecting this and interjecting that. I said, listen, I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen to me. And at the end of it, he asked me a question, and this was the ultimate question. He said, what do you want to do with this? And I just realized, yeah, what do I want to do with this? I have a choice. And I realized it came up now because I believe everything is in divine timing, because it was meant to be released. It was meant to be let go. And then the other thing I realized is what this person had done to me as a child. This was their human form. There was a reason why this all happened. But my point I was able to see is this is not who they are as a soul. And we are all a part of each other. So by hanging on to, and I could have, to anger and horrible thoughts and grudges and all kinds of things, by being able to step back from that, I was able to let it go. So I guess where I'm going with this by sharing this is, how could people start to do that or understand or even use your book? Because we are all a part of each other. And once we realize, when I say we go back home, we really are everything on this planet, everything in this universe. We are all part of each other. So it's like when you do something nasty to someone else, you're really just doing it to yourself.
That's exactly right. And I'll tell you, there's nothing more difficult than changing your beliefs and changing your thoughts. But that's what you really need to do. And I don't want to make it sound simple. And I think what you do is you look at the toughest part of your life. And you don't try to solve everything at once. You just do it a piece at a time. And you say, okay, this is the biggest problem that I'd like to deal with. And then you start looking at your beliefs and start seeing which one of your beliefs are self-limiting. And it's the self-limiting beliefs that are giving you your problems. So you pick your worst problem and then
And
start
fear.
thinking.
And fear.
Fear is all part of it, but fear is one of your beliefs. Fear
True.
is just another one of your self-limiting beliefs. And so what you need to do is you need to look at yourself and look at how you look at things, and say, well, wait a minute, maybe I'm causing this. And I think that's the advantage of Our Eternal Existence, my book, is because it helps you see who you are. You still have to fix it, but if you can realize what's going on around you, it's the first step. It won't solve your problems. This book of mine will not solve your problems. You'll have to solve your problem, but it'll help you see that you can do it. It's within your power to do it. And it's only within your power to do it. And a lot of the problems you're causing yourself, you're not realizing you're causing it. It's not even other people. Some of the sicknesses that you get are to tell you, baby, slow down. You're doing things wrong. You gotta relax. You gotta stop being as you're driving your body crazy. And there's other things where if you are thinking that, well, my both my parents had this cancer and I'm surely going to get it, and you concentrate on that, and you read books about it, or you read articles about it, and you listen to it on the radio or in the television, and the television says, well, if you coughed last night, you probably have cancer, and all of a sudden you're thinking about it again, and you bring it to you. You will draw that to you if you concentrate on it, because your inner self is giving you the experience that it thinks you want, and the things that it thinks you want are what you think about, what you expect, what's way deep down, not the superficial stuff, but the stuff that's way deep down inside you. And so it says, okay, if that's the experience you want to have, I'm going to let you have it. So if you believe that you'll be poor all your life, by golly, there's not much you can do about it, because every investment that you make, everything you do, your soul will make sure that you're poor all your life, because it thinks that's what you want. Now the soul has already said, this is what I would like you to have. It sets up a pre-life plan, says these are the experience that I think we ought to have, and you say fine. But then you forget about those and you go off and you start having your life. And the soul, it can't control you, and it wants you. It will encourage you to have the pre-life plan experiences, but it won't force you to have them. You'll have the experience that you want at the time, or the soul thinks you want. So we bring a lot of this stuff on ourselves, and we don't have to have a lot of the experiences that we do. It's just that we get caught up in life and various things because we don't really understand what's going on. Nobody, for example, has a pre-life plan to be a terrorist. That's not part of it. But if things don't go well for you, and you can see, you're taught the wrong things when you're young, and you're in a difficult place, this and that. You can see somebody having trouble, and a criminal. We don't come here to be criminals, but you can see that it gets off. You can, if things go bad enough for you, get off track. So if you understand what's going on, you can start getting yourself back on track. But you need to realize that this is a controllable situation. It's not just the world's out of control and I don't know what's happening. And sadly, a lot of people feel that way. And if they can just realize that they don't have to feel that way. They can start straightening it out. But don't try to fix everything at once. I mean, if you're having a tough life, just pick the worst thing for things that's bugging you the most, and start saying, okay, how is that? How am I making that happen? How have I drawn that to me? And start working on it a piece at a time.
For people, though, and I always say this myself, and I think that once you start to open this doorway to metaphysics, if you will, and you start to recognize a lot of these things and many more that we're talking about, that it's always so easy as an outsider to see what the issue is when someone's going through it that maybe you care about, you love, maybe a friend. It doesn't matter who it is, right? But the problem is, it's very difficult as human beings holding that mirror up to our own faces and taking a look in the mirror and saying, how did, what part did I play in this? What part, or even like when you were saying about somebody that maybe we don't like. And I love that you brought up that it might be your best friend over back. I call it back home. But the thing is that the other way I take that, it might be, I find when I don't care for someone, it's very few people I don't care for. I really do love people and animals. But the thing is, when there's something that just irks me, that's a reminder to me, if you will, that what are they mirroring to me that maybe I need to take a look at within myself, or you know what I'm saying? So where I'm going with this is how, because we all run into people, I'm sure you have too, that say, well, I'm at a crossroads, I don't know why I'm here, I don't know what I want to do, I don't know what, they really feel lost. And so how do we get people on that path that come to for guidance, besides, like, again, and I'm going to say it, buying your book or books like yours? But how do you help people in the short term is what I'm saying, because it is hard for people to look at that mirror and say, most people
It,
can't admit they're wrong or say,
well, it's very hard, and generally, what you don't like about somebody else is a characteristic that you don't like about yourself.
mhm, mhm.
And that's hard to own up to, but you can. I mean, that's not impossible at all. If you look at them and you say, okay, there's something about me that I don't like, and I see that in that person, and you don't recognize that. You just don't like them because internally it bothers you that you've got that fault or that issue that you don't want to deal with.
Or
And
personality trait even, or
exactly,
mhm.
exactly. Whatever it happens to be, yeah, that person is showing something to you that that makes you feel very uncomfortable because internally that that's something that you have to deal with personally yourself, not this person, and so that's very hard to do. But I mean, there's nothing harder than changing your beliefs. That nothing harder than that.
Takes a lot of honesty, I think, and courage, because that's, like I've never understood, and I'm not pointing fingers or being judgmental. Again, I know you would know this, David, but anybody listening out there that's hearing this is it, where was I going with this? I'm losing my train of thought here. I've got so many thoughts going through. I know what it is. I've never understood why people have such a hard time admitting if they were wrong, or just to say I'm sorry. I've never understood that. Is it
It's an image that we project in the world. We're not honest with the world at all. Nobody's honest with the world. We
well, we
we
wear masks. We
we,
wear
we, we wear
masks.
masks,
Mhm.
and what we don't like to own up to the fact that maybe behind the mask there's a problem and there's an issue. So because it hurts our self-esteem that we've created for ourselves, our image that we've done. Very hard to do. Very hard to do. But it's hard for everybody to do. But if it becomes a problem, where it becomes a problem, then you have to deal with it.
I got to ask you this. This just came into my mind. I have been seeing this, and maybe it's because I've been saying it out loud. This is what I'm getting and receiving. But looking at the world today, especially in the developing worlds, I almost feel like we're in an epidemic of narcissism. It's service to self. And then, even I wasn't looking for this, but it sort of showed up in, I'm always either reading or listening to something or whatever. And it was a bunch of teachers, different videos on YouTube about what they're seeing with these small children. And I hate labels, but they call them, I guess, Gen Alpha or something. And they're having these 4 and 5-year-old little children who have been told, you are so special and so unique, and to really celebrate that, which isn't a bad thing. But children who are going to school and saying, I don't have to listen to you, you're not my mother, I am so special, I don't have to do this. And I don't know what the answer is, but that kind of scares me a little bit for the future. I don't know. What's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I agree with you. How we handle our children is a very difficult task. I think society, it's very difficult. I think the biggest problem is we see things in this social networks and such that maybe we hadn't in the
It's not
past life.
real.
I don't think that our world is worse. I think our world is better. I think it's continuously getting better. I think the problem is that the issues are getting blown up and they're in our face every time we turn on the news, every time we read a
I
newspaper, every
agree.
time, and then that seems to be what people want to talk around about the water cooler. And so it's always in our face,
I'm
all the
so glad
problems.
I asked you this and you've given this perspective. Thank you. Because I think it is getting better too.
I don't think there's any question about it. The world is evolving, the entity Michael said that when I asked him, he said there's no more infant souls coming onto our planet. Our planet is tough enough as it is. The people that are incarnating now have been here before, and everybody is getting older. The age of the humans on this planet is maturing, and that's a positive sign, because if we were all old souls, the world would not be the way it is. But it takes a while. It takes time. You have a life, and then you learn a lot from that life, and then you learn more when you're between lives, and then you come back a little bit wiser. And everybody's doing this. So things are getting better, but you just wouldn't know it. You didn't have to live during the Black Plague. You didn't have
Thank
to.
goodness. Well,
You know,
maybe
you
we did. Maybe we
well,
did.
well, we probably did, but
Hmm.
we're not now. And yeah, I think we absolutely did. I think we had all those tough times. I
Hmm.
think yeah, I think we've gone through a whole bunch.
You know
Yeah.
what? I have to agree with you. I had to ask you about it because these are things that I see people talking about, like you said, around the cooler. Everything is magnified with social media. We shared our paranormal story actually on the Travel Channel's Paranormal Survivor. I believe I had that experience. Yes, I chose it before we came into this. I came into this lifetime. But I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now had I not had that experience. So I always say I wouldn't wish it on a blade of grass. Not that I'm any better than a blade of grass, even, never mind a human being, but I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. So I learned so much, met so many people, have had so many incredible experiences because of it. So, no, and then I'm able to take what I've learned from that experience and help other people that reach out and what have you. So, I look at it as a positive experience. Going through it was a positive? No. But
Right.
looking back, and the same thing is that in the past, I believe that the only chance that human beings really took is when they faced adversity. You went through something really awful and you had a choice. Either I'm going to be in the victim mode, and again, I'm not judging if maybe that was the experience you wanted to sign up for. Could be, right? Or they did something with that experience. Many wonderful changes in the world have been made because of adversity. And I'd seen this recently, and I also work with two fellow intuitives, and we connect, as we call collectively, with spirit on the other side, including some scientists have passed, I believe. And I think humanity, exactly what you just said, is evolving to the point that older souls are coming in now, and that we've agreed as a whole that we don't have to go through pain in order to learn and grow. Have you run into that? Have you seen that? Or what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there's no question that that we're learning that. I don't. We haven't learned it yet. You want to know what suffering is, and the purpose for suffering is to teach you not to suffer. And how do you not suffer?
I'm
is
sorry, I'll
is
spit that out, but it sounds so easy.
it does, but that's the purpose of it,
Mhm.
because it brings some decision you've made, whether you know it or not, to your attention.
Mhm.
So you have to, we go through these things, and there is a lot of pain and suffering out there, but we're learning slowly, ever so slowly, that these are the mistakes, these are the bad decisions that we've made. Some of the things that are happening to us are karmic. In my last life, I was a Asian soldier that got blown away in the war, and
Mhm.
that was a karmic life. And so some lives are karmic and some aren't. But I apparently learned a lot from that experience, and that's what we do. So some lives go fairly smoothly because you're trying to accomplish something. I mean, nobody's life goes really smoothly. I mean, everybody's got problems, but some lives are smoother than others. And certainly if you're looking at it from the outside, somebody, you look at somebody and say, boy, they probably have a really easy life, and you don't know that. You don't know that at all, and probably aren't having an easy life. It just looks that way from the outside. So yeah, we do have these things that happen to us, and they're not accidents, and they're learning experiences that are difficult. And the only thing you can do is just deal with what you've got at the time, and move on. Don't dwell on it. Just deal with it, whatever it is. If it's karmic, it will be what it will be. And if it's not karmic, then you can control it a lot more than because it's decisions that you're making now that you have more control over.
So, one of the questions I do want to ask you, something you said earlier, and I thought it was very valid, is we all have limiting beliefs. But for people that don't realize that they have limiting beliefs, and I always say this is never pointing the finger at parents, but children from the age of 0 days old to about the age of 7 are like little sponges, and we absorb literally everything around us. So, like, I've grown up with money doesn't grow on trees or this and that. So I know those are some of my limiting beliefs that I absorbed, not my parents' faults. It just, I need, like, I'm starting to look at that because I've been able to make, for example, manifestation work in many parts of my life, but I know that there's still some limiting beliefs around abundance for myself. So I'm really looking at that. But how do people discover, say, some of their limiting beliefs?
Well, that's not easy. I talk about it in our eternal
I was
existence.
just going to ask you. I think you covered that in your book.
I did, and I call those things that you're talking about now root assumptions, and
Okay.
these are the things that we just naturally believe because our parents told us, because the priest told us, because the doctor told us,
Or your
because
teacher.
somebody in authority, somebody that we have great confidence told us that, and we say, okay, that's a root assumption, and so we just believe that, and that can be a problem, and they're very hard to change, but you have to really dissect what you believe. The other things is that our core beliefs, and those are the ones that we create, and a lot of times we use our root assumptions to generate our core beliefs, and those are the things that we've rationed out, rationalized, we've logically thought about them, but like a software program, garbage in, garbage out. And if you've got the wrong fundamental assumption, then that you're going to create a wrong belief. And they're all the same, and they're very, very difficult to believe, but or to change. But they're changeable. They're changeable if you're very honest with yourself, and you have to take it a piece at a time, and you have to look at it and say, okay, what's causing this thing? What do I believe here? What of what am I? If you look at it with self-limiting, I think it's the easiest way to do it. You look at something and you say, all right, I'm not good at this, or this is going to happen, or these fundamental thing, anything that's going to limit you is a false belief. Anything. Anything that's going to limit you is a false belief. So what you have to do is you have to look at yourself and take a piece of it at a time. You can't do it all at once. You can take a piece of your life at a time. You take the piece that's bothering you the most and say, okay, what do I believe that's limiting me about this particular circumstance? Is it a disease that I happen to have? Is it whatever it happens to be? Is it my job? I'm not capable of doing this. I'm way over my head. Is it I can't fix my financial situation. It's just I'm not good at this. I can't dance. I'm not a good dancer. Whatever it is that's bugging you, you have to look at it and you have to realize that you're causing this and you can change it. And you really have to try to understand what's limiting you and then realize that that's a false belief because there is nothing that limits you for anything. Nobody is limited on anything. But we think we are, and everybody thinks they are. I mean, there's nobody that doesn't think that they're not good at something or that they're limiting themselves on something. Some people, it gets farther out of hand than others, but everybody gets caught up in limiting beliefs and self-limiting beliefs. And if you can just look at those and change those, as best you can, it's a good place to start.
I like the advice that you give because sometimes I'll say to people, like when we started this conversation, and I forget exactly what you had said about something about why am I here, and then you had mentioned I think, or I forget how you had worded what you had, but I was thinking in the back of my mind, I think sometimes it would be easier, but say, um, I wish I could remember the words you had said exactly at the beginning of this show, but it was why you'd started this journey. And you started to look at what are my beliefs, I think you said. I think that's what you said. What are my beliefs? I was thinking, I think it would almost be easier to write down what do I not believe to be true and then
That's
go from
that's
there.
when I said that I was trying to start writing my first book and
There you
say,
go.
okay, try to write down. I got all these thoughts in my head, and I said, okay, what do I believe? How does this make
That
any
it was
sense?
that. Okay, I was thinking as I'm talking, that's what you had said, and I thought
Right.
in the back of my head when you said that, I thought I think it would be easier for myself to write down what do I not believe to be true, what do I not believe.
Yeah, it's a daunting task to sit down and
You've
do
got
that
to
for
have
the first time.
honesty and courage. That's the problem. You've really got to want it because I think that's what people don't understand. I think the biggest gift my father ever gave me was when my brother and I are 15 months apart. And so I was barely 8 years old. And so he would have been 7. And of course, the kids at school were, that one of our childhood friends told everybody we were taking out of school for brain surgery for the week. But my dad was a real follower of Og Mandino and, Dale Carnegie and people like that. And he had taken us to a memory course for the whole week. And my brother, who had he still does, has ADHD, could not sit still, could care less about these things. I just absorbed it like a sponge because I loved I was reading textbooks at the age of 6. Like I like stuff like that. But it was one of the biggest gifts he could have given me was because you still remember those things as a child because you're like a sponge, right? So I don't know what made me think of that, but I mean, it was the beliefs and the whole thing as we were talking. But, if we can really look at that, and again, I mean, nobody wants parenting advice from anybody that's not, you know what I mean? Like I appreciate people's advice if I ask, but I didn't want. But I really hope, like I said, I can live to see the day where a lot of these changes happen. Like it's just the norm because we will live in a different world. But I wanted to ask you something else here. I just took a look down because I had your bio and I thought, holy cow, this is an interesting question, right up my alley. So, who are the channeled entities to you, Seth and Michael, and how do they communicate to you? This is right up my alley. I'm super excited. I'm so glad I looked down. Thank you, Spirit.
These entities are groups of souls
Mm-hmm.
that have been on our planet, and they've gone through their physical cycle, and they've gone through the astral cycle, where you go after, when you die, you just transition to the astral field, and you go back and forth, back and forth. And when you're done that, you do it in groups, and you do it in groups of like 1,000 souls at a time, and they take the name of the last soul that has the last life. So Michael would just be the last, the last guy that had a physical life in this entity. His name would be Michael. But if you're talking to Michael, you don't you don't know who you're talking to.
You're
I mean,
talking to
any one of the 1,000 could be talking to you, and they communicate and they talk to each other and such like that. The easiest one to do for me is Michael, because I use Shepherd Hoodwin, and Shepherd is a fantastic channel.
How
And
have I not heard of this person? I got to write
I
that
don't,
name down.
I don't know. He's a neat guy. He's out in California,
Okay.
and he's still doing it. He's not doing it as much as he used to. It takes a lot out of him, and he's not a young man. But he has been a wonderful source of knowledge for me, because it allows me to go and just ask questions. And he used to say, Dave, I haven't talked to Michael in a while. I talked to Shepard, but not Michael in a couple of years. And he used to say, Dave, I love it when you come, because everybody else that comes to me, they want to know about themselves, and you want to know about the universe. And he says it's fascinating to hear what Michael has to say about the universe, and it's very true. And so and so you have to use a channel unless you're a capable channel, and I'm not. So I have to use
Okay, can I stop you
other
there for a
channels.
second?
Yes, you can.
Stop you there for a second. Okay. So you just said I'm not. Just a thought, but I truly believe every human being is capable of this.
Oh, I agree with that. No, I agree with that. No,
Okay.
no, I say I have not been successful to this point,
I love it.
but
So it's
but
easier to
I
get the
agree with
knowledge.
you. Everybody has a capability. Some has it stronger than others.
I agree, just as in humanity, some of us have gifts in areas that others are more powerful in or better
Exactly.
at. And plus, that what I just got from Spirit was, as we were talking, I got all excited and jumped in there, sorry. But it's easier for you to get the knowledge you desire and ask the questions you like, to work through Shepherd to access Michael. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yes, it's easier
Okay.
for me. It's
Okay.
easier for me. And so there's a number of ways you can do that. And I tell you, get off the subject a little bit, but not much. It's one of the problems that people have is they don't know that there's what happens at death. They don't know
Okay.
if there's a life after death and not. And I would say that anybody who has that question, it's easy to determine and convince yourself that there's life after death, because it's easy to communicate with the spiritual world. And what you do, if you don't have the feel comfortable with your capabilities, go to a medium, maybe like yourself, and just say, you don't, you tell them who you are, and you tell them who you want to talk to, and your relationship, and that's it. You just keep your
I don't
mouth
want
shut.
to know anything more. Why are you coming to see me? Who do you want to see?
Yeah,
I used to think I needed a picture. And most of us in this field will say less is more. Don't tell me all this stuff. And people want to tell me their whole, no, please do not tell me that. Because then what I receive, I know is coming from the other side. If you've told me it, I don't know if it's what you've told me, because I know how powerful the mind can be. So just give me the bare minimum is what I always say.
I agree, and so you need to be contacting somebody that you are close to. It could be a spouse, it could be a parent, it could be a child, it could be a close friend, but it has to be somebody that you had a relationship, somebody that knows something. That individual knows you need to believe that you're talking to them, so they will tell the medium things that only you would know. The medium wouldn't know it. And so you can easily convince yourself that you are talking to that person. And if you go to a medium and you walk away and you say, I can't, I'm not convinced, then you've been at the wrong medium. You then go try another medium. But because some of them aren't that as gifted as they advertise. But you know, if you find a good medium, and there's a lot of them out there, you can convince yourself. Well, once you realize what's going on, one, you can ask them questions. When my wife died, my youngest child, neither one of my kids, my youngest child is psychic. She knew something was going to happen to her mother. And so afterwards, she learned how to do automatic writing, and so she can only do automatic writing with her mother, but she can do it with her mother. So for me, when I have a problem, I go to my youngest daughter, and I had a leak in the roof and I couldn't find it to save my life. So I said, "Would you please, Chris? Would you please go ask your mother where the leak is?" And she comes back a couple hours later and says, "Dad, it's between the wet bar and the fireplace up on the roof and on the chimney." So I go up on the roof again, and I'd been up there 100 times, maybe more than that, and sure enough, there was this hairline crack that I'd never seen before. So you can get answers from the spiritual world once you are convinced that you're talking to the person that you think you're talking to. So I would say that the most important thing for people that are trying to find out what's going on in life, and convince themselves that there is a spiritual world, that they go and do this. They go find a medium, and they go make it happen. It's easy to do.
David, my co-host, he's in I think he's in North Carolina. I always get, if it's, I'm positive it's North, it's not South Carolina. And he is that type of medium. He will be able to give you names, and he will be able to give you, the biggest shock for me, because mediumship is a newer one of my gifts, and it came from running into past patients. I had a set of twins. I worked in the NICU that were born premature, and it was a boy and a girl. And whenever we'd have babies in the back that were going to be sick, we called them, the labor and delivery was in the back, we'd always pray that it would be a girl, because boys are always sicker than girls. We had the theory that you could just have one man in a whole village of women. You could repopulate a city if you had to, right?
True.
I don't
Yeah.
know if it's genetics or what it is. Anyways, this little boy was very ill. And then lo and behold, I worked out in the community. I did a lot of palliative care, a whole bunch of stuff before I'd hurt my back. And I was off at this time, and it was Christmas time. This is quite a few years ago. And I was at the Canadian version of Barnes and Noble. It's called Chapters Indigo. And I ran into his mom. And I just loved his mom, because I had ended up, like I say, looking after him in the community as well. And I heard, "Tell my mommy I love her." And then we got talking, and as I went to give her a hug, I heard this. And then she told me that he had passed away. And I said, "You're not going to believe this, but I already know." And then I told her what I had heard, and we had a good cry about it. And then a couple of things like that happened that weekend, surprisingly enough, with past patients, because I was no longer actively working in nursing. And so the biggest shock to me with mediumship, because I'm what you would call very clairaudient, I can hear spirit all day long. That's why sometimes, like tonight, when I said I'm losing my track here, because I'm thinking, what am I going to talk to you about? I'm hearing spirit, I'm watching the chat. And but I found with mediumship, and I do speak 3 languages, it's kind of like speaking a whole bunch of different languages, because some spirit will speak to you, some will send you a feeling, they might send you a smell, they may send you a color. It was such a shock for me because I think I was just expecting to always hear it, but we have to be open, I think, and flexible, right?
I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I would think most of it comes telepathically.
All of it does, yeah.
Yeah.
But I've done a bit of a questionnaire with people. Now, David, my co host, he says he actually hears a voice outside his left ear and he knows that that's his guide, I think Zamir, that he works quite closely with. Whereas a lot of people, myself included, I hear it in my voice, but I know it's not me speaking because it's always said with almost said differently, with nothing but love, and either for my highest good or people that I'm working with. I know it's not how my inner voice I would speak to myself. So I know that that's one of my guides. But my belief is that, on earth here, we live in a duality, right? I always say perfect place for humanity would be perfectly connected to whatever people want to call it, the universe, the astral plane, whatever you want to call it, and to be very grounded. But we also have night, we have day, we have light, we have dark, we have good, and we have some not so good, right? Because not everybody's running around with rainbows and unicorns and love and light in their hearts, and everything's energy, right? So, anyways, my whole point is that's why, or where I was going, again, losing my train of thought, is that I believe that when you're connecting with a spirit or a collective that is meant in your highest good and from love, they're not going to purposely try to scare you or anything to that effect, right?
I agree with that 100%. 100%. But there, my mother was funny. I didn't realize it until she was really quite old. She was communicating with her spirit guides
I
by
love
she
it.
was getting yes or no answers,
Mhm.
and she would get, if it was yes, she'd get a tingle from the top of her head down to her toes, and if it was a no, she'd get nothing. So she was able to communicate, and I thought it was kind of amazing.
Well, spirit though, I always tell people, like I had just done a reading before the weekend, and it was every reading's always different, and this one in particular, we ended up talking about how to connect with spirit because they felt that they could before something had happened in their life, and now they almost feel like it's been shut off. So we were talking about how to make that reconnection, and we actually ended up pulling some oracle cards and going through them. And just, I asked a bunch of questions like, what do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? What do you smell? And that's, I don't think in this day and age, especially when we're putting our attention and focus, not everybody, but a lot of people are on electronic devices, that we're forgetting that our bodies will speak to us. So will all our other senses. We just have to be open to it and pay attention to it, like your mom obviously had figured out for herself as well.
Right. Right. I
Mhm.
agree with that. I agree. We're way too tied into the mechanical stuff in our world,
Mhm.
as a population.
So again, and I've seen that, you've got some great questions. And like I said, I don't usually look at them, but there's so many places we could go, but we forget to, right? Because this is like a second language we speak most of our day, but not everybody does. So if somebody was listening to this and hearing about consciousness, they're going, what is consciousness? What is it?
Consciousness is an attribute of energy,
Hmm.
and there's only one thing that exists. There's only one substance, and it's
And
conscious energy, and that's it. N- Nothing else exists except conscious energy.
Mhm.
And conscious energy has taken every form that you can possibly imagine. Everything you see is conscious. Obviously, we're included in that, and it joins together in a Gestalt type of environment. And
Okay.
for those of you that aren't familiar with Gestalt, it's when two things join together, and there's some capability is greater than the sum of the two, the N capability, combined capability, I should say. But in any case, consciousness is an attribute of energy, and energy has other attributes too, but consciousness is the big one. And basically, that's what that's what everything is made from. And so everything is conscious, which is a little bit strange. Your house is conscious. Your car is conscious. An atom is conscious. You can't not be conscious. And consciousness is basically defined as being aware of yourself and aware of your surroundings. Now, obviously, your car isn't aware that it's in a garage. All right, but it's aware
as
of
far as we know.
something.
As far as we know.
As far as we know, as far as I can tell. But the difference between us and, say, our car or this desk or this computer is intent. And you and I have intent. My car doesn't. My car doesn't want to turn into a Mercedes. It has no intent to become something. What will happen is the elements that make up the car will someday leave that car and go somewhere else, and will in time form beings like you and I. Probably a long way away, but we were there too. We started out really tiny and really small. So we've been moving along probably for, throw out a number, 1 trillion years. I don't know, a huge amount of time. And we are part of everything. So minerals are alive and growing and evolving, as are plants, as are the smaller animals, as are the bigger animals. And of course, when we're done with being having sentient souls and being part of humanity, we'll go on and continue to evolve, and maybe we'll become a star next time and go see if we can figure out how to operate a star, which are, to my understanding, very complex.
Okay, so I got a question for you then.
All right.
And I've often pondered this and had conversations with Spirit about this. So just because as we evolve and grow, and say the next lifetime we choose, and it may not be on this planet, it could be another planet, it could be anywhere, right? Because like you had said, it's sort of everything is consciousness or conscious energy. So if we could move forward, we could also move back in time, because we're the ones that have created time as human beings, because there is no time on the other side. The past, present, and future is happening at the same time, right? So could we not go back to a previous time? Maybe there's something we need to grow and learn from, say when there wasn't as much technology or something. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, time only exists in this physical plane.
Absolutely.
And it's because space is not nothing. We think of space as nothing.
Oh,
Space,
now you're opening the can of worms. I really want to go there. I'm dying to hear this.
space is a fabric, and
A
space flows.
fabric.
A fabric.
I've never heard that before. I don't mean to cut you off. I'm super excited. A fabric. I got to hear more.
Okay, space is a fabric,
Mhm.
and as such, it's an energy field. We don't notice it as an energy field, but it is. And what it does is it slows things down. It slows down the speed of light, just like water slows down
That
the
would
speed
make
of light,
sense.
and glass slows down the speed of light. Well, so does this fabric of space. And because it slows it down, it gives us the illusion of time. So if
Okay.
matter is spontaneous, it will form something instantaneously. It doesn't hear because things are slowed down. But if indeed we were outside of this space, which we are in our dreams, by the way, our dreams, if you noticed, have things form instantaneously, right? They can turn, your building can turn into a field and vice versa. One person can turn into another person, and so on and so forth. Well, that's a lot closer to where the real psychological domain is, outside of this space-time continuum that we're in. So time doesn't really exist. So can you go back in time? Yeah, because it doesn't exist. What time is, we have what is known as the spacious present. And the spacious present includes past, present, and future. It's a
Okay.
very difficult concept to truly understand.
Over time and the concept of it. Now, Jean Bassett said, and I talked about you earlier, Julie, your ears must have been burning. She says, I've never heard of space as a fabric either. So what? Okay, so now I'm using my human brain here because to me, fabric is a woven thing of fibers, right? And of some sort. So have they defined what this fabric is that space is made of? Or
No,
where
it's just an energy field.
an energy field?
It's part of our reality. A reality is two things. One, energy has to be in a certain place, in a certain
Like
form.
a confabulation, if you will, to create
Yeah,
the things that we think are solid.
and then you have to be able to sense it and to have a reality. So we have a physical reality here because the energy is in a form that our five senses can perceive. Now, if indeed our soul came here, our soul couldn't perceive this reality because it would perceive all the other energies. So it wouldn't be able to. So it creates this vehicle, and this vehicle is our body, and so we're able to perceive that. And all this energy is, all the space is just another form of energy. I mean, you could see it. I mean, you have air here, right? You can't see the air, but it's here because our scientists have said, hey, we got some oxygen here and nitrogen and such,
Plus, our
and
chests
so
are
we're
moving up and
told
down
that
for
it's
no
here.
reason.
What's that?
Our chests are moving up and down at a rhythmic rate for no reason,
Well,
right? We know we need air or
yeah,
oxygen.
exactly. So just because we can't see this space energy doesn't mean it's not here, but it is, and it gives us this unique reality, and that's what we're here to experience. And so time is part of that unique reality,
Mm-hmm.
and time is a creation of they say our we have space, we're in a space time dimension, three spaces and one time. Well, that's true. That's what this physical reality is. But there's millions of realities, and so we're experiencing one, and this one happens to have time in it. So, but look at Einstein. What's Einstein tell you? He says, well, if you go fast enough, all of a sudden time disappears, and he's absolutely right. And then he says, of course, you can't go that fast because it would take an infinite force to push you that fast, and that can't exist. Well, that's also true, but he's assuming that you're within space. And as soon as you get out of space, what happens when you die, when you go to some other domain, then you don't have space to worry about. So time, it doesn't exist then.
Or time bending, and I'm searching my brain about this now. I do connect with Albert sometimes, and we have some interesting conversations. I'm hoping one of these days that maybe Tesla can pop in there as well. Boy, have I got questions for him too. But I've been seeing, I think I've seen this. I don't think that I got this in a meditation or a dream, but time bending, like people are bending time. And I'm positive that now that I'm talking, I think it was on Mind Valley. There is somebody out there that is talking about bending time in the way that it's almost like creating more time to do more things in the same span of minutes and hours. Does that make sense to you? Have you heard of that before?
I have not heard of that. No,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean that it can't exist, but
That's what I always
I'm
say,
not
just because I haven't
familiar
heard of it.
with bending of time.
I
I can you can shorten it and lengthen it. I haven't heard about bending it.
the other thing that I've been fascinated with is science looking at what they call the space. Well, I am talking to an electrical engineer. I probably sound like a kindergartner, but the space in between atoms, they're saying that there's actually more of that than the atoms. Like, does that play a part with anything? Like, have they looked at that? Is that how we started this interview about what we think is a reality? Basically, is not really a reality, is it?
It's a reality. No, it's a reality. It's not the ultimate reality. It's the reality we happen to be in. We're in the physical reality, and that is what we see because that's what we perceive. That's why we're here. But the space between the atom is indeed the fabric of space. And
Oh,
so,
that's why Spirit kept reminding me to bring this up. It kept saying, "Talk about that," and I'm going, "Well, I'm not just going to bring it up." Like, when you must understand this when you connect with Shepherd and all this stuff. We have these conversations with Spirit as I'm talking
right,
to you. Please
right.
tell me more.
Well, basically, if our whole physical world is made from electromagnetic energy. Not
Absolutely.
necessarily, because an atom has got poles. It's polar. It's you got electrical,
Yeah.
positive and negative aspects of it, and so that's what really creates. It creates the world that we see. Now, if you get small enough, you realize that an electron that's flying around an atom isn't really in one place. All you've got is a waveform, and that waveform is just has a higher concentration in one spot than another, but the energy of an electron and any other particle is distributed. It's a wave, and that's why when you see quantum mechanics and you see
Oh, I was
things.
going to ask you that, and we're running out of time. I had so many questions for you from this conversation.
Yeah, yeah. Well, quantum mechanics is a funny thing, and we look at it and we look at a particle and we say, okay, a particle in quantum mechanics can be a particle, electron can be a particle, or it can be a wave, and they've
Yeah.
shown that in the laboratory. And of course, light. We think of light as a ray. Well, light can be a photon. Well, we are no different, and our consciousness can be individual or it can be a web like. And when we're not here, we're in a conscious web. That's what the universal consciousness is. And so we are part of that. What are we doing here? We're having an individual experience. We're learning that we are an individual just like we are a wave. We always feel ourselves as a wave when we're not here. But we're an individual and we'll always be an individual and we'll never stop being an individual. And we'll always have the memory of it being an individual, even though we also have a wave life function. So quantum mechanics really is just trying to, and scientists are struggling with it because they're looking at it from the physical world. But it's just a way of showing us that indeed the metaphysics is right. That indeed everything is as a dual function, and we're no different. And the weird part is that we're no different.
I have so many questions for you. I do. I hope you'll come back. I'm putting you on the spot here, David, but I'm hoping you'll come back on here because this has been fascinating. We have a lot of questions, but I knew that they weren't going to be quick answers. So I'd love to have you.
I'd be happy to come back.
Wow, because I don't normally look, but because I had your bio open, I'm seeing some of these things, and there were some really good questions in here because that's usually why I don't look, because I want to just go with where the conversation flows, because I'd love to hear more too about, we didn't even touch on Seth, and I understand about the collective, because when I did the Akashic records, can we deal with an individual on the other side, an ascended master or angels or whomever might be with the Akashic records when we're accessing it? Absolutely. But you get one soul perspective. I should say individual. But as a collective, everybody puts all the energy into the answer. And I find we usually get a more holistic, well rounded answer. One of my friends I work closely with, she was on here, let's say the 8th. Yeah, last week. Two of them are my closest friends, Leanne Clark and Debbie A. Anderson. And Debbie A. Anderson last week was talking about her collective that she channels, and she calls it the Center of A. And then Sheila, I always forget, is it Gillespie? She's one of the, been around the channeling circuit for a long time, and she's got a collective. There's a lot, right? So it's interesting that you gave the perspective where the name Michael and Seth came from.
Yeah, and if you're really gonna get into the Akashic records, you really need to go through somebody in the either causal, and it's a lot easier to reach the causal than it is the mental fields, because both of them are next to the in frequency and intensity and such, and next to the Akashic records. And Akashic records are very, very difficult to look without some help. If you're going to look at an individual's Akashic records, you can do that because we have within us our own set of Akashic records.
Absolutely.
And that Akashic information, after we're done all of our physical lives, goes up to our essence, and our essence ends up looking at that, comparing it to all the other information that comes from its other souls, and then that gets transferred to the Akashic records, where they integrate it into truth. I mean, the Akashic field is a recording of everything that happened
Absolutely.
in in this universe.
Oh my gosh, Kason just asked the best question. So I really mean that, David. We're gonna have to connect after this. I would love to have you because I'd love to hear more from you about your thoughts on the Akashic records, because I worked with a mentor, still going through the second part of some of the stuff with my course, but getting into, there's even like Akashic records people don't realize, like for land and buildings, like everything you could possibly think of. I know you know that, but for people listening, right? So I've never heard someone talk about the cash just like you did. So it'll be super cool to talk about this, because I'm going to leave it with this. Because hi, Kathy Hanley Little, Ruth Kleber, they popped in here, didn't get a chance to say hi. Kason said, how does, and we'll have to save this for the next one because we've got literally 2 minutes. Kason asked, how does individual consciousness tie in with the fact that everything is one and separation is an illusion? So I am literally going to screenshot that comment and say, David, would you come back and talk about that some more?
Well, a lot of this stuff, matter of fact, I touch on all of this stuff in Our Eternal Existence, a metaphysical perspective of reality. So if people are interested in this, I highly encourage them to read the book. It's a very readable book, but there's a lot in it. So you'll probably want to read it a couple of times. But if you read through once, then you can go back and hit the stuff that you're really interested in.
Okay.
And so it's not a hard book. There's just an awful lot in it.
I
And
love it. Where I'm going to leave that, just one sec, David. I want to tell people, how can they get a hold of you? Where can they
okay,
buy your books?
David Gaggin davidgaggin.com is my website, and the best way to do it, if you want to get a hold of me personally, go to it, and there's a way that you can excuse me, email me directly.
He's
I
got an awesome website, you guys. I checked it out today. It's fantastic.
Thank you. And I have I do, if you're ever in South Florida, I run a Sanibel Metaphysical Meetup group, and it's free. I pay for it all. And if anybody wants to come, they can. All you got to do is go to meetup.com and and join the Sanibel Metaphysical group, and then I tell you when we're going to meet. And our next meetings, I think, in 2 weeks.
We've
But
got people from all over the world here, though. So this is just if they're in Florida, I guess.
really, it's just if they're in Florida, to do it, because it's a personal thing. But if they ever travel down there, but they have my book. They can get in touch with me, and I'd be more than happy to share anything with them. As I say, this is my passion. This is what I do in life these days. I'm retired, and I just do this stuff.
I think you're fascinating, but I knew you would be. As soon as I seen, because Gavin sends me a list of the new books, and as soon as I'd seen this, I went, oh, I gotta have David on. Oh, Kathy Hanley says that she's in Kissimmee.
Oh, really? Well, she's not that far.
Kissimmee, I guess, depending how you say it.
Kissimmee's going to take her about 3.5 hours to get down here if she drives. But if she wants to come down and take a look at the area and happen to be here, she's welcome to come. And all she's got to do is get up on meetup.com, join it because it's free, and she can come visit us. I'd love to see her.
Kathy. There you go, Kathy. Now, you guys, if you're enjoying the content, please stay tuned. We have the Horsefly Chronicles coming up next with Julia and Philip Syracusa. And that'll be on. Then you guys know I am going to be back Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My good friend David Hansel. We had our anniversary show last week. Also from the Angel Rock last week. I'm working on Debbie and Leanne, trying to find a time to have them back on, hopefully in March, but we're booking into the end of April already pretty well. So hopefully we'll get them back on. Then I'm going to talk to David afterwards and see if there's something we might be able to work out. So Kevin said, did not want to keep interrupting, but I heard that growling, snarling, and breathing throughout entire show, but only when Lorilei spoke, not hearing it when David spoke. Spirit kept telling me to share. Okay, well, I'll go back and have a listen, see what it is. The dog's in here, but she's not snoring. We don't have anything at our house, I can tell you that. Anyways,
Maybe it is my microphone. You never know.
I have had EVPs. I've had strange stuff. I have actually, it's quite a story with the paranormal that we went through, and a lot of physical stuff, and crazy, crazy, crazy story. It was quite dark, and but like I say, I know about energy and protection, and not from a place of fear, but my whole point is, and then we get into things like I even have angels, as if you know about this stuff, and dragons, good dragons. Now, I probably sound crazy to half the world hearing that, but that's another discussion for another time. So you guys hang in there. Join us on Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with David. We're going to have something fun to talk about. I mean, you guys know we could plan a whole show. And if you guys have something else to talk about or you want to ask, we're going to pivot. Kevin just said, great show and great guest. Thank you. Want to send you all so much love and light. So much gratitude to David. And again, I'd love to continue this conversation with him. Go check out his books, you guys, especially his new one. A lot of the questions you asked. Yes, Kaysen, I did screenshot your question. And then lastly, Kevin says, good to know, but it wasn't when you were speaking. He said, I'll go back through and have a listen. Anyways, y'all hang in there. Stay tuned for the Horsefly Chronicles, if my mouth will work. Again, thank you, David, and we'll see y'all on Thursday. Okay, everybody? Take care.
Thank you, Lorilei.
Thank you.